So I figured I'd make this video just because I haven't talked about this, and if anyone kind of wanted to know, you can watch it, and you don't have to, or that I don't know that you watched it. It's just kind of, you can make your own judgment, and also because I just don't want to have to tell this story a million different times. That said, it's been 4 years since my ex and I broke up, and I don't think I've actually really talked about this with anyone. I think when she and I initially broke up, I just kind of made one kind of brief post on Facebook saying we broke up, this is why, and this is my plan now, and it was kind of like that. It was just more like a life update, and I think she saw that post and totally blew up on me, and that's not what happened, and which is kind of weird because the only thing I said was that she didn't feel comfortable around me, and that was how. So that's how she broke up with me. So it had been, when it finally happened, I'd been kind of feeling like I was losing my sanity a little bit because we were barely even roommates. We weren't even talking to each other or even looking at each other. I was working a lot, but eventually I got a phone call from a friend of mine, and he was just telling me, in his phone call, he said, I wish I had this on tape too, by the way, but he said that she's locked herself in the other room with her gun, crying because she's terrified I'm gonna come in there and beat her or something like that. And at the time that I got this phone call, she was in her room, but I thought she was just writing, and I was just playing with our daughter. And I knew when I got that call that she didn't actually feel that way. And actually, after this happened, she told me, just so you know, this is almost verbatim what she said. She's like, just so you know, I never felt unsafe around you. But I knew that she was just saying that, one, because having it be this phone call with involving another person kind of makes me a person of interest if anything actually happens. I don't know, I'm kind of speculating a little bit here, but I knew that she didn't actually feel threatened. I think she really just, for a while, months, she wanted to break up with me, but didn't know how to do it because, I don't know, it sucks to be the person to break up the relationship with. So I think she just kind of said that to make it a little more justified or whatnot. But I mean, between her and I, it was a lot more okay, I see what this is. And she was pretty kind to me. She let me pack it took me almost a week, mainly because I was just, trying to play with our daughter as much as possible. And also because just cramming everything into the car. It was every nook and cranny. I didn't even use bags for just socks, underwears, t-shirts. It's just, the little Bermuda triangle between the seatbelt and the center console, just everywhere was just stuff. And by the time I left, I mean, I couldn't see anything in the back. There was no back seat. It was just me. The front seat was loaded. The whole thing was as packed as could possibly be. And I still didn't get all my stuff in there, but I tried. And then later on, she tries to say that, it's so funny the way I just used those words right there, but both she did and she does. But anyways, she would say that, I don't know, she didn't know I was leaving or something. We just had this conversation a week before. Maybe it was a week, maybe it was 4 days, but I don't remember exactly. But we just had this conversation. She's like, just so you know, I didn't feel endangered. And I'm just I know. And then I'm pretty sure, if you saw your partner packing everything, taking everything they own out of the house, wouldn't you notice that? So she tried to claim that I didn't notice that. But anyways, so it gets really weird. And then she kind of begged me to come back after a while. And I went to stay with my mom for a little bit because it was around Christmas time, and I needed to visit my mom anyways. My mom needs a little bit of help at least a couple times a year. It's not much, but a little goes a long way to help her. And it had been a while since I'd done that for her. So I ended up coming back. I had a whole plan for going to trade school. And I mean, this is 4 years ago. I mean, I can't imagine where I'd be now if I'd actually just done that. And But it ended up, she begged me to come back, so then I came back, and it turned into the same thing she always does, which once I'm actually, it's not just me, it's a lot of other people too, but once you're actually there knocking on her door, she just vanishes. She won't answer text, nothing. Um, so I kicked around for about a month. I was living in my car at the time in winter time in Deschutes, in January in Deschutes County, Oregon. It was pretty cold, and I eventually ended up going to visit my dad for my birthday, and then she blew up as soon as she found out. I think she found out through my dad because she wasn't answering any of my texts or anything. She like would not open the door. She did once, like the very first day I got back, and then that was it. And then she blew up again about how it was always like how selfish I am, like how I just keep blowing her off, and it's like the thing is too is she's done this with everyone. I'm gonna try and not bounce back and forth on the timeline here, but I have friends that aren't my friends anymore because of her reaching out to them, and God, I'm really getting off the timeline here, but things that were happening before all this happened, before we broke up. And so maybe I should get into that, but I guess I'll just wrap up. Like in the time we were broken up, but she was still talking to me, and which was probably only about 6 or 7 months. And so basically, I ended up doing wildland firefighting again. And at one point, I got COVID, and that was the only time to myself that I got. And I was symptomatic. I was pretty sick for the first 2 or 3 days, and I didn't want to give that to them. So what I actually did was, I stayed in bed for like the first 2 days, but I actually went camping because the room that I was renting, the woman lived in the house, and she was like 60 years old. She's on oxygen. Like she's basically the highest risk for COVID. And I was like, I can't be in this household with COVID to this person that actually might die if they get it. And I actually ended up camping out for a few nights, and I made some Facebook posts about it. And I am totally speculating right now, but she might have seen those posts and then thinks that I'm just like goofing off. And I try to be kind of positive in what I post. I don't really like social media, but if I post things, it's like, hey, look, I went hiking and stuff like that. And so for her, I think I actually went, because it wasn't just me, it was everyone that was on the engine off this fire we got off. If we all got COVID, the youngest guy was completely asymptomatic. And then the other two were me and the other guy. We went canoeing at one point, and so I posted about that. So I think she probably got the impression. I mean, it looked like it, but I did post that I have COVID. I just didn't really go into the specifics, and it was just like typical me is like, well, got COVID. We're out here away from everyone. We're just keeping to ourselves, and so she started doing this thing like, you never come see your kid. The reality is, every opportunity except for that when I was sick, I would come over and see her. But it was still hard because I would text her. She knew, like I worked Sundays. I can't remember what my days off were, but working Sundays is kind of common in wildland firefighting because it's Sunday pay, Sunday differential. And anyways, like I worked Father's Day, the only Father's Day we had together. Which I'll have to get back to because she kicked me out of bed on that day, and it was that's when I probably should have known the relationship was over. There were some other times. I think one time, here I am in the timeline again. There was another time that I told her, I don't remember what we were arguing about, but I told her something along the lines of like, like when we're in bed and your hand finds my hand, it's like everything feels right with the world. And after I told her that, she never held my hand again. And that was the only intimacy we had left. So I don't remember if that came before the Father's Day thing or after it, but it was probably around the same time anyways. And those are kind of the two clues where I should have known. Like, I think that's why I was kind of losing my sanity, but I was also working so much that I was like, my whole thing was get to the end, get to layoff, and then she and I can get into therapy, which is really where I wanted to start this video, is what was actually going on in the world at the time and why we couldn't do that. I'll get there in a second here. But basically, I averaged something like, I think we got 1,400 overtime hours. The first year I fought fire, and the second year was, or maybe that was, I don't remember what it was, but it was about that both years. The last year we were together, and then the year afterwards, where we're trying to co-parent. But if you do the math on that, it's something like it's like 13.5 hour days. Which when I was living with her and commuting, there's a half-hour break there for lunch and then a half-hour drive each way. So basically, from the time I left the front door to the time I came back was 15 hours, 6 days a week. So I get one day off, but then we're also fighting fire. So jumping back to this, like, we're broken up, but we're still trying to co-parent. I really had one day a week, and I was living in Bend, not Redmond, too. So it was kind of like, it was just so much driving. I think I put 15,000 miles on that car in like 4 months or something like that. And the gas was like $6 a gallon the first period there too, in like 2021, 2022. And anyways, something, I don't want to say something happened, but it just kept getting worse and worse. Like the communication, and then her blow ups, and me doing things that I understand where my intentions are, but I can look back and see how like that looked a different way to her, just making her even more fierce with me. I think it's not just her. A lot of people don't understand. I have friends that, like, they don't understand that when I'm fighting fire, especially in the heart of firefighting season, I can't just be like, we don't go home every night. I can't just be like, hey, your band's playing, I'm going to come see you this Friday. They'll message me. It's like, hey, I'm playing. I'm like, sorry, man, can't make it. And they'll just kind of be like, whatever, man. And I basically am not friends with those kinds of people. But there's people that just generally don't get it. And I actually kind of think she's one of those people where one time she called me, and it was like her car broke down. She was like 2 blocks from her house. And she wanted me to help her. I was out of state on a fire. And I said, sorry, I can't help you. It was actually kind of amazing that I got the phone call, because usually I don't even carry my phone on me. When I first started fighting fire, I just never did. And then we start using fire, like maps and apps for firefighting, so then I had to have my phone on me. But usually I don't have reception in a lot of these fires. And so that was kind of weird that I actually got her call. But I ended up getting another call like 10 minutes later from my dad, who was just like, he was like, hey, she said you told her to like fuck off. And I had to kind of like explain. I think I had already told, I actually had to stop talking to my dad for a while too, because I kept telling him over and over and over, we're not going to talk about her. And that's where I really should go back on this timeline. So anyways, basically what ended happening is we're broken up, but we're still kind of like amicable until we weren't. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I don't want to bring her family into this too much, but there's one person in her family that we would kind of joke had like psychic powers or could see the future. I remember like when she was pregnant, we were like, oh, she knows, I guess I just narrowed it down to it's a woman in the family, but women have these abilities and men kind of don't. But anyway, she had told me at one point, because I think I got her flowers for Mother's Day, and she was like, she's like, is she still letting you see your daughter? And I was like, yeah, she is. I'm working a lot. Like, but it was her choice of words there, like, is she still, like, as if she knew that this was going to happen. And that's where I need to go. I basically need to go back in time now to where, why did we not make it in our relationship? And there's probably some clues in everything I just kind of said there, but there were some red flags. I'm gonna just jump straight to the generalization here. Is a lot of things were actually completely out of our control. Like COVID, like Oregon was just relentlessly like lockdown at a time that we really needed like outside help, and we couldn't get it because all the therapists were like, oh, you got to wear a mask, or it's all tele-Zoom. It's like, no, we need to be in a room with a person, and we couldn't get that. And there was a therapist who was kind of willing to see us, but things like we're starting to get so crazy between us. I don't really believe in self-sabotage, but like we'd get a scheduled appointment, and then something would happen in one or both of our lives that we'd have to cancel. And it happens. And finally I called him, and then he just didn't even want to do it by that point. So I don't even really know. Like, I actually, as I think about this right now, I'm wondering if she even really did schedule those appointments or not. I think she did, but like, there's so many things about her I'll never know. And there were incidents where we were in the emergency room because she's having some bizarre health issues, and the doctor takes me out of the room and he's like yelling at me like she needs to tell me what's in her system or not in her system right now, or she can die right now and we have to help her. But why won't she talk? She won't say anything. And this is one of those instances where the words just kind of came out like I already knew, but I was kind of like in denial, and I just said like she would rather die than admit that she's relapsed on something. I fully believe at this point that I will never know. There was another time that happened where I was installing like child locks on some drawers in the bathroom, and I pulled a drawer out, and all of a sudden, bam! Like it spilled all these empty wrappers. It was this stuff called Painosoma, and as soon as I saw it, I just thought, this isn't the stash. This is a decoy stash. And like she wasn't really talking to me at the time, so I was thinking like she wants me to find this and then bring it up and then go from there. But she is not like, she wants to, I don't even know. This is like I don't really understand addiction or these kinds of behaviors, but I just kind of knew in my mind, I was like, I will never know, and she will take secrets like this to the grave, and she will successfully probably hide it. No one will know, and it's just the way she is. So anyways, I should go back to, in the beginning, and like some things I noticed that should have been like little flags. And one of those things was, like, I remember when I was kind of meeting her family for the first time, like her mom kind of asked me kind of like a little nonchalant, I don't know if that's the right word, nonchalant, but she asked me about my diet. And she's like, oh, I hear you're like on a special diet. And I'm like, no, I pretty much eat regular food. I just like try to stay away from like simple carbs and stuff like that. I try to just eat good veggies and good carbs. And she immediately turned around at her daughter and said her daughter's name, like, and I realized like, oh, because my ex would say things like she didn't cook because like cooking for a man perpetuates the patriarchy. She'd say things like that, but I don't even know if she actually believes that. I think she just didn't want to cook. So it almost immediately I could see her mom being like, are you cooking for him? And her being like, well, he's got like a special diet. And because you can't just outright say no, there always has to be some reason. And that was something I noticed. And throughout our relationship, I would get asked little questions like that from her family. And she also had rules too. Like I wasn't allowed to talk to her sister. She'd say like her sister was going to steal me away from her. Her sister was married. And also her and her sister are like two completely different people. Like, not that her sister wasn't kind of cool, but like she's older, she's a grandmother, and it's like, no, I'm not into your sister, I'm into you, and you two don't even look alike. It's not like they're like twins where I'm like, well, she's kind of cooler. No, they were very different people. But she was, so anyways, but I did honor that. Like I didn't talk to her sister. And but they would, like, I remember there was another time where I was doing something for my ex. Like I was buying her something for when she woke up. I'd have something special for her. And then I got a phone call from her mom saying that she's in the ER, like something's wrong. And I'm like, my first thing was, well, where's our daughter? And it's like, oh, we're all at her sister's house. So we actually, all of us, not just me alone, but all of us would be at her sister's house. That's just where they always held family events. And they would always pry, and they would always ask me like these little questions that kind of like made me wonder that, in hindsight, I guess my ex has not been very successful in a lot of relationships. There's like a pattern that always happens. And I get to say, I stayed with her the longest of any guy she was ever with, which I don't think that's really a good thing. I think that just means I'm stubborn, but, or I was delusional. I was hoping, I had a child with her. So obviously I wanted to make things work, because there were times that I did. She'll say things like I broke up with her, but she this is something she does too. There's always an element of truth in the things that she says. I've broken up with her before we had a kid. and then she's referring to that, not the final breakup where she like indirectly broke up with me. So she's like, I've had friends, like she and I have mutual friends too, like little things. Like she was working at this grocery store when I first met her, and she was telling me how like she needed money because they had to pay out of pocket for their own like liquor handler's license or something like that. I found out later that, well, yeah, that's true, but they were going to get reimbursed on the next paycheck. You know, so like little things like that where I'm only getting I'm not getting the full story from her, and some things I don't believe, like, you know, she had a dream I cheated on her, so now she's mad at me. And it's like, that's always a black flag. I think she and I were already kind of committed at that time, but and or possibly engaged. I don't really. Anyways, but yeah, her family. I remember like her mom one time like looked at me when, you know, we're all just there and I'm just holding Olive or my daughter, and her mom's like, "Did you really tell her you don't love her?" And it's like, no, I didn't say that. She and I did have a little bit of an argument the night before. I don't remember it really being a big fight, but just something. I think I said something actually along the lines like, "I wish you'd speak my love language a little bit more." So I guess by the next day, she'd construe that to me saying, "I don't love her," which is not what happened. And I think anyone that does that, that's really bad. I think anyone that has a brain that can kind of restring words around like that is doomed as far as having a relationship goes. Because communication is hard enough already, but if you're starting to change words around or just deliberately not communicate, it's over. That is an impossible relationship. So there was always little clues. Like the biggest thing was when our daughter was about 5 or 6 months old. It was Thanksgiving, and something happened where basically, like, I just remember we're all there at her we're all there at her sister's house and eating Thanksgiving dinner, and she I haven't talked this much in a while. I haven't recalled a lot of this in a while actually, but something happened where she's just like this. She hasn't even touched her food and she's just kind of shaking and like, I don't know if incoherent is the right word, but I noticed and then everyone else noticed. And it was like, oh shit, we gotta go. And I basically carried her out of the house and put her in the car as all eyes were on me, like what the heck just happened? And then, you know, she went to bed. She's pretty much stayed in bed the whole next day. And then she came out at night and then just blew up on me about how it was all my fault. How could I embarrass her so much? Like this whole thing. And I'm just thought, were you actually awake in bed all day coming up with this? Like, it was just, that was where it all really began. And from that point on, it was like she never let that go. And she's not, I don't know if she realizes, but she's not the only woman I've had a relationship with, but she's just the only one that never conceded on anything. I just really feel like she's going to take everything to the grave. When she and I would fight too, I also noticed that like what she was saying were not responses to what I was saying. And I realized like, she's not even hearing me. This argument that she and I are having, it sounds like she's arguing with someone else. And I'm wondering if that whole thing where like there's just something in her brain that just never lets anything go, or never, it's not even lets it go. It's like never just realizes, oh, I was wrong and everyone already forgives me. I'm the last one just not forgiving myself. Like that never happened with her. So I'm wondering if like, I really started to feel, especially with, I think kind of with the lack of intimacy between us, it never really felt like I actually was really like her man. It always felt like I was kind of like maybe I was a bounce back, but really there was something unresolved from the past that she just had never got over. And I was just kind of at the brunt of that. So it sucked at the time. I think, you know, the lack of intimacy was probably like number 3 on the list of things that I thought made a relationship difficult. It's one thing that she doesn't cook. It's another thing that like she won't eat anything that I cook, and then I would bring things for her and like really go out of my way, especially when I'm working that many number of hours. Like I say 15 hours from the time I leave the front door to the time I come back, but that doesn't include doing the groceries. Like at the end of the day, she doesn't really get out of the house that much. And I have friends that drive down her street all the time. They said she just never checks her mail. And it's right there. All she has to do is open the front door, reach around, and pull it in. She doesn't have to go inside, but for some reason, the world is just like too scary for her. And initially, when we first started dating, I actually kind of thought it was kind of cute because it made me feel like her protector, right? I'm an idiot, and a lot of men are. They don't. No one tells you. Maybe it's like father to son advice, but I don't know if a lot of women realize there's a lot of fathers out there that give their sons no advice on women whatsoever. And you should know by now, we also cannot read minds, and that's. But the best we can do is give each other advice. But I never got any advice, and that me feeling like I was protective of her definitely drew me in. And I realize now that I think the reason that she is the way that she is because it works for her every time. And she's she's kind of like quiet, a little withdrawn, but she's pretty, and she'll kind of smile if you say the right thing. And I think a lot of dudes, like, it's like a drug to them. It was for me. And they think that, like, they have a chance with her and they like the way she makes them feel. But the reality is I had a friend in Alabama that we're not friends with anymore. It was the guy that she called, amongst a few others. But like, he was convinced that, like, she was in love with him. And it would have been, I haven't talked to that dude in about 4 years, so I have no idea what ended up happening. I could see him. I don't think that guy, I shouldn't have been friends with him after a certain point in my life, because he was not a very mature or, like, emotionally healthy guy. He's kind of gone off the rails, last I heard from a mutual friend. But if he had picked up and moved from Alabama because he thought he was going to, like, be with her, it would have been a little bit hilarious to me if she did the same thing that she does to everyone, which is they're like texting her, knocking on our door, like, hey, I'm here, so you need, and she just goes silent. It's the thing she always does, because in reality, guys like him, she wants him right where she wants him. But if you try and break out of that, she just disappears. And I think that for a while I was pretty convenient for her. We were single income, and I was paying for all the bills. And that worked for her, but really, I don't think she really wants another man. I think she likes the idea of having another man that she can just kind of call whenever she wants to push the button. But really, she doesn't want a guy in her space, and she doesn't really want anyone in her space. It's just kind of her, the couch, and a bowl of cereal. And she would say things to me like how our daughter, like, stole her identity, and, like, all she is now is just a mom. And it's like, I would trade her in a heartbeat. And she would also kind of, like, compare our lives. Like, you have it so much easier than me. And it's like, all right, I'm living in my car, working 87 hours a week, and you're not letting me, I don't get to see my daughter. Like, I wanted to marry you, and now, like, obviously that's not happening. Like, and I have to pay you $900 a month. Well, at the time I was paying her $700 a month. Like, and you won't even let me see our child. And I was like, I know I was thinking that. I don't know if I actually said that, because I wasn't going to play, like, my life sucks more than your life. Like, that's a horrible way to look at life, in my opinion. But, she'd say things like that. And there were so many stories. Like, I got a call from that friend in Alabama. I was like, hey, she said you put a gun to your head and threatened to shoot yourself if she didn't have sex with you. I was like, dude, that's not what happened. Like, and then my dad would call and he said, hey, she said you, like different variations of the same story. It was always after we had, like, a little fight, and so, she would smash things. She would scream and flail, and I would wake up in the mornings and, like, the kitchen would just be destroyed. The kitchen was kind of like my space in the house. She didn't really go in there very much. Or the garage would be destroyed. The funny thing is, she never smashed anything of mine. It was maybe places that I would be in the house, but it was never my stuff. So it's another reason why, when it was kind of all said and done, when we finally broke up, I actually kind of felt like this huge weight had been lifted off of me. Because one, it was like, okay, my suspicions, my gut instinct was correct. Like, she was over me. So there was that. I don't think she and I had been intimate for almost 2 years, with, like, maybe one exception. Like, that made it a little bit easier. If she and I had had a little bit more of, like, an intimate life, I think it probably would have been a lot harder to leave when she pulled the plug on that. Than it was, or maybe not. I don't know, but but that's again, I mean, I think just all of this kind of just contributes to like me kind of feeling like I was never really the guy. I think she always wanted a kid, and even when she would say things like that, like how our daughter like stole her identity from her, and it's like, I mean, being a dad is the only thing I want to be. I don't care what anyone thinks about me. I'm wearing a gray hoodie right now because I don't care. I don't have any tattoos. I don't have any kind of fancy. I do not give a shit what anyone thinks about me. All I would really, except for my daughter, that's the only person I just wish I could be in her life every single day. And I think she just wants me to hurt. And I think that she knows that not letting me see our daughter is the ultimate pain. That is the greatest way she can hurt me the most. And I don't understand where it all comes from, because I know that I never told her I don't love her. I don't love her now, but I never told her that. I never called her any names. I never hit her or threatened to hit her. I mean, I think I got one friend I think called me, said I threatened to like rip her nails off her hand or something like that. That might have been the Alabama. It would be like someone like that couldn't visually see that as proof that that didn't happen. But anyways, like I never threatened any of that. I never cheated on her. I just, and the thing is too, those things are like, I guess kind of inadvertently kind to her, but I do those things for myself. Like, first of all, like, okay, name calling. What does it benefit me if I call her like a bitch or something like that? Nothing good comes from that. So why would I do it? Even if I'm thinking like, damn, you're being horrible right now. Even if I'm thinking that, there's no really reason for me to say that. I remember, to throw a little funny story in here, I guess, just for my own sanity. I remember one time she kind of like started a fight with me, but then she's like, I'm not going to argue with you right now. I'm like, why? And she's like, because you're drunk. And I just remember kind of like side glancing her and just kind of walking off. But I remember in my mind, I was thinking like, this is kind of cool. I should do this more often. But that was the only time that ever happened. And she was constantly like, she'd be like, why are you treating me like shit? Why are you treating? And I'm like, literally like, I'm like cooking for her. I'm like cleaning things. Like I'm changing our daughter's diaper. Like I'm doing all these things. Like it was like the one day off. Like there was like a 2-week period of time that I had off where I told her, like, I said, hey, I only asked for like maybe 4 hours on this Monday and then 4 hours on this Friday to take care of. It's not even like my own thing. It's like things like mowing the lawn, checking the oil on her car. It's all her house and everything. I like taking care of that stuff, but really it's like I'm doing these things for her too. So it's my time, but it's still kind of her time. And she was just losing it. She was just crying, just telling me I don't love her. And I'm just like, and eventually I ended up going back to work because I told her, I was like, hey, I'm about to go back to work, and like you're not going to have any of this time. You're going to be right back on your own. And like how are you going to survive if you can't even survive like me? Like I'm here right now helping out with everything, and it's still not enough for you. Which in her defense, it's hard when you have an 8-month-old. That's about how old her child was at the time. It's freaking hard. You get no time to yourself, period. So that can be a real, especially to someone when you don't have kids and you still feel like you need more time. Like it's going to be tough for you when you have kids because you genuinely have no time. And I have this quote from a book I read where the quote is, heartbreak pain becomes heartbreak blame. And so I think that, you know, she felt that like all of a sudden this huge, like there's hard times, you know, when you have a kid, you can't just sleep in all the time. Like it's like, nope, you have to get up. You have to get up. You have to do these things. You have to change that diaper. You have to feed her. Like you can't, there's no way out of that. So I think when she felt that pain, because I've done this too, when I was leading a job I was doing later on, or I was running 2 crews, and I remember I'd be sticking around with one crew and I'm like looking at my watch, like, okay, the other crew should be about this done. And I'd go around and they weren't as complete as I thought they had been or should be. And so I started timing them, and I realized, oh, they're actually working at exactly the same pace I'm working at. And that was kind of a wake-up call for me. And I think that happens to a lot of couples, where you just, when the prices of groceries go up, when things happen, when your life gets a little tougher, that's neither of your faults or the other person's faults, you can perceive that as the other person slipping a little bit, when in actuality, that's not what happened. I firmly believe that in a somewhat healthy relationship, our partners are generally always doing more than we think they are for us. So I try to make that assumption, but I mean, when you have a kid, like a brand new, like a baby, I mean, you are just 100% all the time. There is no extra effort. So I want to say that, like, maybe I should have like put more effort, but I'm like, nope. I was at 100%. Both of us are at 100% capacity at all times. And I can judge her and be like, I mean, shit, this is something going, when we first started dating, I told her I was very sympathetic towards people that have like ADHD, OCD. It's just, life is just tougher for them. And I remember her saying one time, like, she needs extra time to replenish her well. And it's like, that's fine. That is totally okay. Just understand that, like, their logistics are real. And I never threw that back at her, ever. I was like, yes, you're right. Because I do believe that. She does need extra time to replenish her well. But when you have a kid, legit, like, it's just, you can't make 28 hours out of the day. The day is always 24 hours. You can only sleep so much or so little. Like, it's just, you have to accept that. It's not your partner's fault that you're more stressed. And it just, I want to go back briefly to that, because I have a little sticky pad here. She and I we really had some really bad luck, and I didn't really believe anything at the time up above, but I did feel like I was kind of fighting something kind of divine with trying to believe that the relationship was salvageable, because it just seemed like the more that I tried to fix everything, not her, but fix our world and everything that was, all the problems that were coming at us, it just seemed like more and more things kept coming at us. And I had no resources to draw from. And she had her family to draw from. That was like another thing too, is like, I would oftentimes pick up our daughter from either her mom or her sister's house, who did a lot of babysitting. And it was like, when I come home from work, so like, I never really got a break. I was either at work or I was being a dad, changing diapers, feeding our daughter, or just playing with our daughter, which is fine because I loved doing that. That's the thing I always looked forward to, coming home, but I never got a break. Meanwhile, I'm at work, her sister's, taking care of our daughter. What is she doing? And I remember one time going on Netflix, and like, she had watched like something like all 20 seasons of the Kardashians in like a 3-month period of time. She's just like, that's how, even before we had a child, that's like how it would be. Some of the reasons why I almost broke up with her before we conceived our daughter, which we were trying for. But I was getting to the point where I was like, never mind. Like, it wasn't that I didn't love her at the time. It was just impossible to live with her. Or at least it was just a very empty feeling. I don't really understand like the psychology of like the roommate, like the sexless kind of relationship where you're living under a house, but you're not actually like that was kind of another thing that she did, was it always felt like tomorrow is the day that she's going to be like, okay, let's do this, and it actually never ended up coming. I'd say in the 3 years that she and I were together, probably had sex about 10 times, maybe a few more times. But even that was like, it was kind of hard for me. This is a me problem, but it was hard for me to kind of enjoy, because I was so worried that, like, it's like when you go to a theme park and you're like, I have to enjoy every second of this and not kind of like space out, because we're going to get to the end of the day where we're going home and it's over. And I need to at least have the peace of mind that, like, yes, I enjoyed this and I'm fulfilled. But it was hard for me to do that with her in the bedroom, when the whole time I was like, God, when's the next time? It's going to be 3 months from now. And it was just that, again, me problem, but it was stressful. And I think in hindsight, that was actually stressing me out a lot more. I had a friend kill himself early 2021. That hit me really hard. There was someone at work this is kind of rare in wildland firefighting, but wildland firefighting is kind of a very intimate thing. And it's actually kind of like a slow burn trauma bond with all your crew members. So when you have one that's just even the slightest bit toxic, it is so hard to deal with. It makes all the stress 10 times worse. So I was dealing with that. I actually don't think I ever really told her any of this. I never really like to talk to her about like my problems, because all it would do is immediately become this thing's like, oh yeah, well, let me tell you about my problems. So there really wasn't any point in me kind of like telling her, like, I actually had a pretty bad day today. It was pretty much just put on the poker face. And, you know, I before that happened, well, what's funny is I remember, I think day 4 when I started working that Wildland job. You know, this was right after I told her. I was like, "Hey, what are you gonna do when I have to go back to work?" I think by day like 4, I came home and she, what do the British say, jumped my bones or whatnot, and it was like a big surprise. And she was like really happy to see me, and like, and we did the thing, and 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 then afterwards, like for the next like month, she went kind of back to being kind of like not talking to me again. And I think at a certain point, I remember thinking like, did she think that this was going to be like, if she had sex with me, did she think that that was going to be like, oh, okay, I don't have to go to work anymore. I can just stay home and take care of all of now. Like, like I still have to go to work. And I wonder if like, I hate speculating on what's going on in her head, but I wonder if she, wow, this video is already 40 minutes long. I wonder if she, like, in her mind, she saw that as some kind of rejection. Because it's like that thing, again, where I was on the fire and she, like, called me because she needed something. There's no possible way I could do that for her. But then the way she, like, blows up about it is like I intentionally, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, denied her or something. Like it was a choice. It's like a lot of these things are not choices. And I kind of feel, again, like just the hardship of everything, of the stress of being a new mom, if like somehow all the stress in her head turned around and just got pointed at me, like I must be the problem. And but even when I tried to come back, if she said she made a mistake after we broke up, when I came back, then she went right back to won't answer my calls, won't answer the door. Or actually, at times, I think she even threatened to call the cops on me. She actually did call the cops on me a couple times. But yeah, it was like, I can't believe this video is this long already. I thought that this would be like 6 minutes, but I guess I'll just have to timestamp it. I've never done that before, but yeah, I mean, I remember her, like, when we first started dating, she would tell, if we saw her mom or her sister, they'd be like, "Oh, what'd you guys do?" It's like, "Oh, we went did this, and then we had dinner at the gallery." And I remember she would say that, and I would think, no, we didn't. We had dinner at the other place. And like, there's 2 places in Sisters. And like, I started noticing she would change stories to seemingly no benefit to anything. It's like she had to. I do this with things like guitars and stuff, where I have to like modify it, like put a different set of tuners on it, put a different pickup in it. Like everything I have to kind of like tweak just a little bit to make it kind of my own. But that's like toys. That's not people, and that's not stories and life events. Like, so I noticed that she would do that. She would always change up stories a little bit. And then, you know, towards the end, after that whole Thanksgiving incident, I kept getting, like, what was another one? Like, I punched out the window on my van. Like, that one was, I had the van parked in the backyard for a while. And when I opened up the gates to pull the van out, one of the gates started closing, and the little latch thing went doosh and smashed and broke the window, which sucked. I actually found a spare for like $80 in the junkyard, and it was perfect. And so that was good. But like, this, the thing is, like, the stories, I don't even think she and I even fought about that one. Like, I think it was just another convenient. It was like she was building a case against me. And I remember telling everyone once, this is the most important part of this whole story. I hope I can get out before this phone cuts off. But like, I eventually told everyone once, like, you guys, do you not see, like, she keeps calling you guys, crying or screaming, telling you some horrible thing that I did, and then I tell you the actual story, and like, I'm not going to keep, I don't know what that is psychologically, but I'm not going to keep playing these he said, she said games, and I'm not going to keep like defending myself. It's like, I'm going to tell you right now, next time you call me about this, I'm just going to go, okay, like, I'm not going to keep doing this. Like, you're either going to believe her or you're not. But at this point in time, you've seen this pattern now where she gets emotional. She calls you, screaming at you, telling you what a piece of shit you are, what a piece of shit I am. And it's like, then you hear my side of the story, and it's like, oh, they still kept calling me. I stopped talking to my dad for about a year because I told him, like, Dad, I don't get to be this like negligent in the work that I do. If I slip up, if I don't keep my head on a swivel, if I'm not constantly active, like vigilant in everything I do, people can get hurt. Like, so for you just like disregarding, like me telling you, like, we're not going to talk about what she said, like when you keep just disregarding my request to like respect that, like it's either really negligent or just straight up like you don't even respect me. So that was just between me and my dad. But my other friends, same thing. Even her family, I think her sister texted me. I shouldn't say her sister, but I just did. But like a year ago or something, asking, "Hey, what did so and so say?" And I like kind of just like I kind of said some vague things, like, because I just don't want to talk about it. I don't even care. And maybe this is something, like, I have done therapy off and on since she and I have been together, but like something I need to talk about is like I don't know why I don't really feel the need anymore. Like, I don't care to keep defending myself. Like, I just don't, because it doesn't end. Like, it's just like, no matter what I say, I keep getting the same phone calls. It's like, is it true you did this? And it's like, at this point, I'm like, yeah. And it's way easier for me to just walk away and kind of be this bad guy than to have to keep explaining all these things. And the other thing too is I do not want to drive a wedge in between my ex and her family, because my daughter, not knowing any of this and hoping is not really subject to any of this, is like, she has a really good thing going for her, because I actually miss that whole family. I haven't even talked about any of the men in the family, but I do miss that whole family. And I don't, like, when, you know, they would ask me, her sister and her mom would, they're always kind of prying. They wanted to know things about my ex. I don't want to tell them what I'm saying right now. Maybe they'll see this someday and I'll just have to accept it. But I don't want them to hear this or hear my side of the story and be like, holy crap, and then look at my ex and be like, what the hell? You know, I don't want to do that either. It's just way easier for me to just kind of like, I don't believe in being a pariah, but I'm in a position where I can control this, and there's nothing I can do about that. I knew going into that relationship, all you have to do is lose a really good partner because you messed up in a relationship to go, wow, I need to make sure I never mess up again because this sucks. No, I went into my relationship with her knowing that I was not going to leave any stone unturned if I wanted it to work. That I don't want to be haunted. That time I said I was going to cook and then I didn't because I was angry at her. Like, no, that never happened. Again, it's like, why would I ever intentionally? Honestly, I believe like being cruel to your partner in any way is always a form of cheating, and I didn't want to do that to her because it would haunt me right now, because I haven't seen my daughter in about 2 years, and I intend to see her again, but I haven't seen her in about 2 years. And like that, I am really grateful that I cannot say that that's because of something I did. I will never understand what's going on in my ex's head, but I know that there's nothing I can do about it. And like I said, it's like I never really took any of it too personally. I always just kind of felt like I was kind of this bounce back guy. That it really, all the problems that she's having really don't they don't actually have anything to do with me. I don't know what they have to do with, but I'll never know, and I'm okay with that. It just sucks. It sucks to be in my position. The flags were really subtle, or maybe they weren't, and I was just stupid, but the flags were there. And you might, after hearing all this, be like, why the hell did I hook up with her in the first place? Well, the thing is, she's actually one of the most brilliant people I've ever met in my life. And she's kind of a genius. She's just, emotionally, she is a mess. And she's got this chip on her shoulder. She kind of feels like everyone's holding out on her. And the thing is, too, is like, she gets away with it. Everything that she does, like when I keep talking about, she keeps telling these stories and I have to tell my friends, like, you guys, she's like outright lying to you. And I realize that they know. But the reality is she's got there's this level of pretty where, and I don't know how long this is going to hold out for her because she's about 43 years old right now. And I think eventually her prettiness is not going to outweigh what everyone around her, because it's all guys, by the way, that she's calling and texting. It's not women. And I think women could identify her in a split second. And I think that's why she doesn't want to go outside, is because she knows that the jig is up. I know guys like this from the military who they play this whole thing, and then what happens is once we're not in our 20s anymore, once we get to our 30s, like these little manipulative tactics that they worked for them once upon a time, when they stop working, they've got nothing anymore. And they invested all their energies into kind of like being able to pull strings with people when that's not going to work, and they should have been working on themselves and not feeling the need to do any of that stuff. But her, unfortunately, I do believe there are people out there that really are victims. Everyone these days is like, oh, never a victim, don't be a victim. It's like, there are people that are victims. And, you know, addiction is kind of one of those ones that's really debatable, because it's like, it's choosing to be a victim. Like for me, when I went through a really heavy drinking phase, I was, no therapist told me this. This is what I'm telling myself. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but it was the one area of my life where I was like, I am relinquishing control, because I'm just tired of being in control all the time. And I just need a moment to relinquish it. But that has to end, and it did for me. But what I'm saying is that I have a huge amount of sympathy for people that struggle with things. But at the end of the day, she is a victim of when she reaches out, or when she starts putting on her act, it gets rewarded. So I can't be too hard on her for that. She pouts, she kind of cries a little bit, and guys rush in to save her. And then she gets what she wants. And why would she change? She might have to change when that goes away. And I think that's going to be a really hard time for her. And it's probably going to occur around the same time as our next custody battle, which I'm not anticipating winning. In a certain sense, I've kind of already won, but there is no winning in custody battle, because eventually my daughter is going to read what my ex wrote about me in court on legal paperwork, that I'm actually a little bit shocked that she got away with it, because I wouldn't be able to own guns. I wouldn't be able to work the current job I did if any of what she said was true. And some of it's like impossible, like claiming I was in places I wasn't when I have proof that anyways, my daughter's going to read this stuff someday. And then she's going to look at her mom and be like, holy shit, like you're the one that took dad away from me. That's probably going to happen someday. And what happens then? Then she's probably going to hate her mom, and I don't want that. So there really is no winning in custody. And, but there's a little bit of winning, and at least I already have that. I could stop right now and I have that paperwork, but I just can't stand not being able to talk to my daughter. So hopefully I'll be able to get some, I just want to be able to phone call or Skype my daughter. Hopefully I can get just that. I don't feel very optimistic about ever being able to like have her over. There's probably an age in the state of Oregon where she can request and sway the judge a little bit, but we're not there yet, not for a while. But man, this movie's 52 minutes now. Maybe I should go for another 7 and just round it out to an even hour. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know, I guess as far as what happened, like now I have more of a faith in God and the divine, and I do believe it kind of goes against the whole like, well, marriage is supposed to be forever. It totally goes against it, but I do believe that she and I were meant to find each other. My daughter's is just an incredible person, but it was, I don't think it was ever meant to be. And if it was, like, I don't know. Like, all I can do is kind of be grateful that I do know that, well, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that my ex is actually a pretty good mom. I think the reality is she just needs her space. Like, she's kind of antisocial. And I had a whole plan for when I inherited money for me to buy this whole house. I had a whole plan for her and I to kind of buy a little bit of property and to build like little houses. And I could picture in my mind, man, I almost choked up here for a second, but I could picture in my mind, our daughter kind of just bouncing back and forth between mom's house and dad's house, and us having some animals and a garden. And that was kind of the plan. Cause I knew that she needed her own space, and I can find things to do with my own space too, like everything behind me, even though I don't even care about this stuff anymore. That's the other thing too. I haven't even acknowledged how hard this has been on me, other than kind of mentioning I went through a pretty hard drinking stage there. But This has been by far the hardest thing I ever have gone through. I don't even know why I'm saying that, because no one cares and no one's going to do anything. That's something I've learned. All they do is see this as baggage, when those who know that if I can survive this, and I can survive anything. But I guess I'll just leave it here. I don't even know if I looked at everything on my sticky pad, but I guess it's enough talking. I did punch a hole in the wall towards the end. It had nothing to do with her. She wasn't even there. She and I weren't even fighting. It was like one of the few times where we're actually kind of on somewhat good terms. That was something that happens to me at the end of every fire season, where it's like, as soon as my brain knows, you know how like when you see like marathon runners, like they've ran 26 miles and they get to the last 100 meters and then they just drop and then they're like crawling to the finish line. That's obviously psychological, but whatever that is, that's what my brain does at the end of fire season. I start to like not be able to sleep. I start like, I can't even form sentences. I can't talk. It's probably just because of the lack of sleep, but it's like all the trauma just like, or it's not, I hate using that word trauma, but the stress from the whole season just unloads, and I just put a hole in the wall. And of course she was furious about that, and I fixed it, by the way. But yeah, that relationship. She's the only person I've ever broken up with that's like, for a while, I mean, we haven't texted in years, but she'd be like, I don't know what I ever did to make you hate me so much. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I loved you. I never hated you. I still don't. Well, she's pretty disgusting to me now, but when my daughter was born, and she was like so perfect, like, my ex was a little bit on the older side. I think she was 37 or 38 at the time, and I was like, I hope this comes out okay. When my daughter was born, like, and she was just so perfect, and she was smiling, and she's like holding my finger, and she's like looking around the room, and my ex is just holding her. I looked at my ex, like, obviously, yeah, my daughter was like kind of instant love, but I looked at my ex in that time, and I was like, I had never felt the level. It was like new level of love unlocked. When I looked at her, she was the most beautiful, incredible person I'd ever known in this world. And I mean, it was just the strongest. After that point, I would never would have wanted to break up with her. Like, I would at all costs try to make things work, but which we did. But again, we actually had some pretty. I think even she would acknowledge. Like, she could say horrible things about me all she wants, but I think even she would acknowledge that, like, we straight up had really bad luck. The COVID lockdowns may have made the difference of whether or not we could have solved a lot of these problems, but ultimately I think it was just inevitable. It was just, I have this faith in God now, and with that, even though this seems kind of to go against God's word, I do believe that our daughter was supposed to be born, but she's not the one that I'm supposed to marry, and I really wanted to marry her too, but it really did feel like I was fighting God. I was fighting fate at the very least. And so 58-minute mark. All right, everyone. Or no one. I don't know if I'd really want to put this video out on there, but now it exists. So yeah, take care.